houses.
Hi, and welcome to another interview with one of our fantastic Northwest VA Conference 2023 speakers, Annabel Kaye of KoffeeKlatch. Those of you that came a couple of years ago, or quite a few years ago, it might have even been 2017 or 2018, Annabel came and spoke. Normally it's about GDPR and changes, because as we know, everything changes all the time. Government don't like us to sit back on our laurels, do they? They like to test us and make sure that we're doing everything that we should be doing. But we're delighted this time to welcome back Annabel, who's going to be talking to us in a second about her session. But if you've not watched any of the videos that we've released so far, I'll give you a brief insight into why I think it's important this year that we host the conference around the theme of future-proof. I've experienced over the last 18 months, as some of you will know, of projects finishing, just things coming naturally to an end, and found it really difficult to get myself back in front of people because I hadn't future-proofed the business, and I wasn't prepared for things to drop off and large amounts of income to drop off. It took me a long time to build that back up again. And I want to be in a position myself, and I know for other people as well, to have some processes and systems in place so that we don't get into that situation where something happens. Over the last couple of years, obviously, we've gone through the pandemic, we've got a cost of living crisis, we've announced that we're already in a recession, and who knows how that's going to pan out. So it's really important that we make sure that specific things are in place, that we can future-proof even a little bit of our business to make sure that we can carry on whatever comes our way. So as I said, Annabel's been with us before, and she's very, very popular within the VA community, works with lots of VAs providing policies and templates and contracts. So firstly, if I introduce Annabel and ask you to just give us a bit of an insight into your business, how long you've been trading for, and the kind of things that you do and how you work with VAs across the industry.
Well, I'm Annabel Kaye, as you could see from my label, and I'm on KoffeeKlatch. And we've had some great news at KoffeeKlatch this year, because until the 1st of March, KoffeeKlatch was a trading name of the company I started in 1980, which I'm still running today, by the way. I like to keep busy, but on the 1st of March, and this is really exciting, KoffeeKlatch became its own limited company, which is kind of like baby going off to uni, really, in the corporate world, isn't it? And I'm still a director of KoffeeKlatch, still very much involved, still involved with the old one, but I've also got a new co-director, in addition to all our additional editorial board directors, who's Joe Bianti, who you may know is a fully qualified data privacy officer and is acting as the DPO for a number of our bigger clients. And this is really exciting, because talking about future-proofing, one of the ways to future-proof your business is to have more people who've got more energy than you to do stuff that you may not have time to do, or indeed it may not be your preference to do. So while I love supporting VAs with GDPR, I've never wanted to go out into corporates and do it one-on-one. And Joe just eats GDPR for breakfast, so that's perfect.
Brilliant.
So that's a big change, and it's future-proofing us as well, having a bigger team, more expertise, more in-depth focus, while of course GDPR itself is changing as fast as you breathe, don't it?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. And I think you could easily come and speak about something completely new that's been implemented at the conference every single year, because it's like you say, it does change, and they do implement new things, don't they?
Well, we have a new draft law. In fact, we have a second version of it. So it's bill number 2 at the moment, working its way through Parliament or not. I'm glad my work rate and Parliament's rate are slightly different, because I've done everything I started last year and they're still halfway through, you know. And there always is. And the biggest problem, I think, with the data privacy area of business is, first of all, we all like to imagine it doesn't apply to us because somehow we're too tiny. But by the way, we are seeing VAs who are now being asked, well, what's your paperwork, what's your system, by potential clients who want to know. It's been a long time coming, but those who are ready, of course, just go, fine, here's my pack, this is what I do. Those who've got no idea are trying to wake me up at 3 in the morning going, please, can you fix it for me now? no offense meant to your delegates, but I tend to be asleep at 3 a.m. Please don't try and get me to do this. You know, you have to wait till I'm awake. So that's a big change going on. The changes in GDPR are not what some people think. Some people imagine, you know, we all like to believe what we want to believe, don't you? So some people believe that as a result of Brexit, GDPR is about to be abolished. This is not the case. What's happening is the UK is inventing our own version of GDPR, which does involve some changes. It also involves some relabeling of things from European speak to Brit speak that are basically the same thing, but not quite. So it's not an abolition, and there are changes. But of course, most VAs work, well, many do, across borders. You've got clients in Canada, Australia, you might be have a client in France, a client in Spain, because we're virtual. Yeah, not all about the UK. And of course, that means sorting out what's happening between countries when you're in different countries, as much as what's happening here. So it's going to be pretty busy, as you can imagine. And I managed to get 4,500 words of cross-border data transfers last year into a 1.5-page form in big type. You know, not, you know, I love big type. Small print is bad for complicated things because you miss it, you know, that people could do to handle cross-border transfers. And we're now updating the same thing, getting ready for the UK to keep changing stuff. And it's endless, you know. But I know as a VA, nobody got into business to be compliant with anything. You get into business, don't you, to help your clients and to make money. And there's a tendency to view this side of things as either too complicated or too frightening or too expensive or too scary or just somehow nothing to do with you. But of course, if you're a professional, it's like saying tax is nothing to do with me, so I'm not paying any.
Exactly. Yes.
That's not how it works, is it? And you know, if you want to be a member of the Society of Virtual Assistants, you have to be properly registered with the Information Commissioner's Office. You have to have a data privacy policy, and there's a reason for that. And I think it separates the VAs who are just not playing with it, but maybe just getting started and doing a couple of hours a week in their back bedroom, from the VAs who are full-time VA professionals.
Yeah, exactly. And I've kind of differentiated that quite a lot and spoken about that. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, if however you choose to set up your business and what you decide to do, if you want to be you know, maybe just want to be an associate and just have a lead VA that finds and outsources work to you, that's completely fine. If you want to run a business and be seen first and foremost as a business person rather than just somebody that does those services, then that's fine. But if you are still processing data, you still need to understand that there's certain things that you need to comply with. And I know a lot of and I share them within our groups all the time, the workshops that you do and the webinars and things like that, that it's really important to keep an eye on things like that, where you can get access to expert knowledge, because that's really I'm not an expert in, you know, doing anything that you do or that Joe does or on data protection front. So it's really important to keep up to date with everything that you guys are issuing and putting out there. And I would suggest to anybody to sign up to your newsletters and to make sure that if you're not committing to paying a lot for any other information or templates or documents, making sure that you're not going to get into trouble for holding or processing data in a way that you're not supposed to be doing is one of the most important. Just
about not getting into trouble, but obviously if you want to pitch to an organization that cares about data, they're going to ask you, how do you roll, really? And if the answer is no, never thought about it, there are certain types of clients that you're never going to get.
Yeah, it'd be quite good, I think, if we could maybe another time, obviously maybe later on in the year, is that pack that you were talking about before, that if a client says, show me what you do, you know, show me how you process everything, to maybe we could look at running a workshop or something like that for either with yourself or with Joe, even to educate people on these are the kinds of things that you should be including, and these are the kinds of things you should be making sure you're ticking the boxes of. that might be something that we might be able to look at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to have extra resource on that, because both virtually and in the room, we've now got a bigger team, and it's needed, you know.
Yeah, it is.
It keeps changing. And the biggest problem, I think, in future-proofing your business from a compliance point of view is there's a lot of people who will tell you this is how it is, but they're not insured if it goes wrong.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And if you follow their advice, it may be right, it may be wrong, but they've got what they remember from a Chamber of Commerce briefing 2 years ago, crossed with what some bloke in a pub told them last month after their second half, you know.
Yeah.
It's not the best way to plan what you're doing. And, you know, you wouldn't take medical advice from someone who once went on a medical seminar 2 years ago and then got transferred to a surgeon. It's that fine, chop your leg off. That's obviously what we need to do. We're a bit cavalier about it. And I'm not saying nobody knows what's right apart from us, but I'm saying a lot of people who have got an opinion have no foundation for that opinion whatsoever. And when and if things go wrong for you, you can't go back to them and go, but you told me to do that.
Yeah, well, that's where the difference between opinion and knowledge comes in, isn't it? And expertise, and people that are training to do that and looking at stuff like that all the time. That's where it's more important.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not scary, this stuff. A lot of what you see, and a lot of people going half and puff stuff, but nonsense, have been on courses aimed at really big companies. And obviously, if you're a solo VA, or maybe you've got 2 associates, and you go on a course that's aimed at someone with 50 staff, you're going to be confused as what's it, because for a start, they're going to suggest you adopt policies that involve 5 different people managing them, which are not practical if there's only you. You've got to keep it streamlined, but there's a big difference between streamlining it, light touch compliance, so that you can still run your business, not have a nervous breakdown, and not doing it at all. Not doing it at all is not streamlined. No. And actually, it can be quite hard work, because we've had at least 3 VAs this year have come to me and say, I've got a really big client that won't renew unless I can provide the following, and I haven't got them. Yeah. And I want them now. Yeah. And I don't want to disappoint anyone, because we do make it as easy as possible, but this type of thing requires thought. And it's very difficult to give someone everything they want right now instantly with not any thinking about how will that work in your business. Yeah. You can give someone a random pack full of paperwork that they can't possibly follow because they'll be in breach of it from the off. That's pretty quick. But if you're going to create something that works for you as a business, so that you're not constantly bumping against it. I mean, have you ever had a job when, in order to follow the employee handbook and ops manual, you wouldn't be able to do your job?
No.
Yeah, I've had a few of those. Well, the answer is, don't create systems you can't follow. But that means you've got to take a pause. You've got to breathe and go, well, what does this mean for me in the way I operate with my clients? Not just give me a random pack and I'm done. And it's difficult. Nobody wants to spend time thinking about this. And let's face it, no offense meant to other speakers on GDPR, but it's not exactly fascinating, is it? No, we do say that. It's not sexy, is it? But it can be fun. And with your sessions, Annabel, we know that they are definitely not boring. Perhaps we should be publishing a book called The Joys of GDPR. I think so. That'd be a good idea. Trying to make it sexy, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. So bearing all that in mind, obviously, and obviously there's so much information, but your session then for the conference this time, and we've put quite a detailed kind of bio of what you're going to be talking about at the session, and you'll be combining a lot of things, but there's obviously quite a lot of stuff that you spoke about there, about kind of cross country data that you hold, and that we've listed that you're going to be thinking about or talking about what happens if changes if your client or your associate is not in the UK, for instance. So just give us, based on that then, just give us a little bit of a brief of obviously people can see it on the website, but in your words then, what you're going to be sharing and what they can expect to take away from the event. I'm going to make it as clear as humanly possible what boxes you need to tick, but it's not just about box ticking. But obviously, if you haven't ticked a box, you're nowhere, aren't you? If you tick the right boxes, you're 3/4 of the way there. And people get in a muddle because they don't understand the jargon involved, and I don't blame them. So I'm going to do a little bit of a jargon decoder. Not a lot, because we all hate jargon, you know. but what bits of paper do you have to have with whom, and whose job is it to issue it?
Right.
And what happens if the person whose job it is doesn't do it? Which, from our recent data, less than 4% of our VA customers get a data processing agreement issued by their clients through them, which is in theory how it should be, which leaves 96% having to fill the gap.
Yeah.
We are experts at filling the gap without driving the client crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really, really important, because you want the business, don't you? But you just don't want the fines. And that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, and as you know, because you've spoken before, that having those tools that they can take away and actually implement in a non-jargon way is massively important. And I presume, as you know, we always try to make all the sessions interactive. So is there anything that you want them to bring? Do you want them to bring any of their policies that they've already got, or have access to them anyway for the session?
I'd like people to make a list of the documents they've got. I don't think, because of the length of these documents, we'll be able to go through very many and have a session. That might be a GDPR in a day job, not a GDPR in how long is the session?
45 minutes.
Yeah, I might not be able to read many policies in 45 minutes, you know.
No.
But I think you need to bring a list of what documents are you using that in your mind relate to data privacy. And that includes, by the way, NDAs, because NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, they're a piece of American jargon. I often get VAs get hold of me and go, do your contracts include an NDA? And I go, well, sort of. We have confidentiality agreements because we're British.
Yeah.
You know, but it's the same thing. It's just spelled differently, you know.
Yeah.
Same thing. But, you know, your terms documents are part of your GDPR compliance. Your hiring documents, your associate documents are. Your data privacy document is, and you may have other documents. Make a list of the documents you got, because we can check off, you know, what's missing, but we're probably not going to be able to go through in detail what's in every single one. Because if you bought some packs from some people, we'd need from now to then to read them, wouldn't we?
Yeah. But that's a good idea, because you might think I've got all of the documents that I need, and then maybe sat on a table with someone and they say, well, actually, I've got this and I've got this. And that VA thinks, wow, I didn't even think about that. So that's the whole beauty of us all talking to each other and having, you know, those little chats around the table to say, I'm not sure. And this is a massive thing for me, that it's a totally comfortable and safe space.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be going, you're on a naughty step, you're missing a document, you know.
No.
That's not how it works. And by the way, lots of people have different names of documents that often turn out to be the same thing, which is why we need to do a jargon buster. Because you might think, well, I haven't got a document called that, but you've got a document called something else that is that. And that doesn't help, you know. And VAs tend to want to comply with things, you know, being admin experts. Very few VAs are hooligans and think, I don't care, I'll just do it all wrong. Doesn't go with the industry. But you can get a bit over anxious going, well, they've got a document called this and I haven't. I need one and I need one now. Whereas actually, if you took a deep breath and went, well, what's it about? You might find you've got one.
Exactly. Yeah.
And also, to be fair, GDPR and data privacy is not just about a piece of paper. It doesn't matter what your paper says. If you're acting in a random and irresponsible way, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
The paper should reflect how responsibly you're behaving. It's not a substitute for that.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And that's interestingly enough. The other thing I think is going to be a real issue, because we're going through updates today, we're doing our normal internal updates, is the new requirements of data privacy policies want you to say whether you send in your own business any data overseas. And most of us think about emailing it or sharing it with someone overseas, which is definitely a cross-border data transfer, as they call them. You know, what a great name, cross-border data transfer, right? Sharing with my VA in Spain, right?
Yeah.
But we don't realise that quite a lot of the platforms and software we put software in is automatically sharing it overseas when we do.
Yeah.
For example, our emailing list is in Active Campaign. I'm not advocating Active Campaign, by the way, or complaining about it. I'm just using an example. We know they host data in America. So when you sign up for my list, I'm exporting our data. I can't help it. I can't make them put it
No.
anywhere else. And an awful lot of email software is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Similarly for software on accounts, Xero is one of the biggest, maybe not when you're just getting going, but when you've got an established business, big brand name stuff in Australia.
Yeah.
So you may think I'm just entering data on my desktop. I'm not exporting data across the world, but have I got news for you?
Yeah.
People
won't know that. Yeah.
No. And Joe and I are talking about today, and between now and the conference, I'm having to do a series of blogs about that, so that by the time we get to the conference, enough people will know it for us to have a sensible conversation.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, sitting here, sending an email, you probably think I'm exporting data to a foreign country.
No, you definitely wouldn't think about that just naturally. No.
Yeah.
No.
And obviously a lot of these laws about exporting data, it's not exporting you. You don't have to have gone anywhere.
No.
But then we do, don't we? We nip off on holiday. Some people are doing really well and they're having exotic holidays in Thailand. And they're answering emails and doing stuff over there, and they're processing data.
Yeah.
Outside the UK, don't even think about it. Pick up something on your phone,
Yeah.
I mean, I do think one of the problems, and I don't get negative about it, is that the whole law is always about 5 or 6 years minimum out of date to how we work, because it takes that long to work it through the process. And the idea that you could sit on a beach in Thailand and update your active campaign lists hasn't really struck them.
No.
Not that I'm advocating you should be working on your holiday, but you know what it's like.
And it's, a lot of people do. So we need to be aware of what you're actually doing. First of all, where that data is being held. So you just think, well, because I'm in the UK and it's in the cloud, it's fine. But it's not. It's being held in another country on a data server somewhere. And then they're going on holiday or being out of the country or traveling or going to visit a client if they're abroad and you're still working. It's all of those little tiny elements that we need to be aware of and making sure that we're covered for, or we're aware of that's what we're actually doing.
Yeah, and then we've got to have a dose of common sense, because all this stuff is really started with big companies, didn't it? And you can't issue a 400-page document because you're going to Spain for the afternoon.
No.
There's a bit of, hang on, mind you, with airport queues as they are at the moment, it'd probably be wiser to arrange to go for longer. Otherwise, by the time you leave, it'd be time to come back, wouldn't it?
Back. Yeah, definitely.
So, there has to be a dose of common sense, but you need to know the map of the terrain to know when you move, what are you changing, when the client moves, what you're changing. And the cloud is definitely a hazard.
Yeah,
I mean, we're on a Zoom call right now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Where's Zoom storing our data about who was on this call?
Yeah, probably not in the UK.
Yeah. So we don't think of that, do we? We're having a chat. We're both in the UK. But I don't know, and I haven't checked it out, but I'll put odds on the answer would be somewhere in the USA, wouldn't it?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Which is fine, but we're not talking, all that Zoom has got is my email address, or not even that, because I hit a link and your email address. But if we were discussing medical matters, if you were a health coach, and I was disclosing stuff about my health, I might not want that in America.
Yeah, definitely.
I definitely wouldn't want anything about the more private aspects of my life in America.
No.
And that's not, by the way, because I'm anti-American, but because their data laws are a bit flaky.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely things to consider. And I think all of that, just having the conversations around that at the conference will make a massive difference to people, and just make them more aware of things as well, and go away with things that they need to implement and think about and consider when they're, when we are looking at, well, how do I future-proof my business for the next 12 months, for the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever that is. We just need to have some processes and things in place to think, right, how does that affect me if I do this? And if I do work with somebody there, how does that affect me? Well, I know now that I've got the tools and I've got the systems that I know I need to think about. And that's going to be invaluable, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah,
thank you.
Collect a list of platforms that VAs commonly work on. We used to do it years ago, but we used to be a list of 10 or 20 platforms, and the last time we did it was about 500. I went, I so don't really want to track all of those in terms of but maybe if there's an opportunity pre-event to do a little poll of you know, what's your number one go-to platform you use all the time?
Yeah,
Because we used to ask for all of them, but then we ended up with a list of 500. And then people arguing about how you spelt the name of them, which wasn't the point.
Yeah, I will actually. I'll do that because that'd be quite interesting to see when people come. Yeah, what kind of platforms are they using, and have they researched? Do they know where that data's stored?
And by the way, it's not that easy to find.
No.
Not always. You know, you have to kind of know your onions to know where to look.
Yeah.
And what to look for. They certainly haven't made it transparent.
No.
You know, but I sometimes think the world of tech's not there to be transparent to the likes of you and me, is it?
No.
It's not what they're about. Have you ever read Microsoft's terms of business?
No.
Give it half a day, love. See, that's not what I'd call transparent. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with Microsoft, but if you wanted people to understand what you were doing, big type, short documents might help.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Don't get me started with Amazon and Google.
No, let's not go there today. No, that would be another
may or may not be anything wrong with what you're doing. Though today TikTok got, was it a £12 million fine for wrongly handling children's data?
Wow. It's just a minefield. It is totally.
And by the way, top tip, the few organisations that gave our client VAs their own data processing agreement to sign, we did a little vet on, and half of those asked the VA to sign up to unlimited liability if something went wrong.
Oh, wow.
Right. We push back on that, by the way, and go, that's ridiculous. You can't insure for unlimited liability, and you're only paying them how much an hour? Why are they going to pay a £12 million fine, love?
Flipping heck.
Now, some people don't care, they sign up, they think it will never happen. But I always think you should assume that anything in an agreement that's there might happen, because otherwise, what's it there for? So, yeah, just as well, none of your VAs were looking after TikTok, wasn't it?
Good job, yeah.
Mind you, if you want £12.5 million off me, dream on.
Yeah, me too.
Blood out of a
And
stone.
on that note, £12 million. Yeah. Thank you so much, Annabel. That's been massively insightful, and I know everyone's going to get so much out of the session. I know they will. And if we can keep it for 45 minutes, I'll be amazed.
We're doing well, won't we? The other thing I've got to do is diet, because the last time I put my posh rock on, I was considerably smaller around the waist than I am now post-lockdown.
You don't need to be posh. Don't need posh rocks at our conference.
I don't think you want my gardening joggies.
Whatever you're comfortable in, Annabel.
It might have to be that if I don't lose that tummy.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'll share, obviously this will go on our YouTube channel. And I'll let everybody know how to connect with you.
Brilliant. And if you send me a link, I'll share
wonderful
the profile in the conference.
Wonderful, thank you. And we will see you at the conference on the 16th of June.
Can't
wonderful,
wait. Just
thank
hope
you.
it stops raining.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.